Hey everyone, welcome to the Front Lounge. Happy 2023. This is episode 38. This week we're talking about stuff, and that's my opening announcement. Follow us on Instagram. We have an account for this. We're posting all the highlighted clips. It's the Front Lounge on Instagram. Here's Danny.
Hello, hello, hello.
And Dylan.
So, hello, hello, hello. Hi.
Oh, there we go. I got my automatic switcher working. It's like freed me up so much, the ability not to have to switch the cameras. Starting to become a fan of this AI stuff.
Yeah, the only thing is when someone laughs, like just does a, it switches to you.
No, it seems
no,
like it's got a bit of a delay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not bad.
Let us know that you're hearing us properly out there. Right off the bat, wanted to just talk about this real quick. Next week, we have a guest coming on. I'll just share the screen real quick, show you him. His name's Dad Zodiac, musician here in Austin. But I came across him because of these, what I think are hysterical videos. So I'll just play one or two of those, and that'll be next week in the studio. We'll have him in, chat, and find. It's like going to be an interesting podcast because I found these funny videos. I don't really know a lot
Anything about him,
else about him, but it'll be an interesting discussion.
There's this guy I know. He's so messy. I'm going to start calling him Nature, the way he abhors a vacuum. I'm going to start calling him Nature because nature abhors a vacuum. There's this guy I know.
It's subtle. It's really subtle.
Yeah, they're like dad jokes, but also not quite
Right,
dad.
yeah.
Maybe that's the Dad Zodiac. We'll find out. This one.
And while I might not have nailed the cadence of a YouTuber, I did employ the unnecessary transitions and overwrought hand gestures. Let me show you what I mean. And while I might not have nailed the...
That's
He also nailed the cadence.
yeah. Geez, what it takes these days to like be consistent and get a YouTube or an Instagram channel that succeeds at some tutorial.
Yeah.
Like, have you
Right.
guys seen that guy that he tells you about like starting seeds from plants in your or from vegetables in your fridge? He does this whole thing. He's like, first you take an avocado and you take out the pit, and then he runs around the room and he's doing like all these camera movements.
Right,
And
yeah.
then you take the pit and you put some toothpicks in it and you drop it in a glass.
So he has to do the whole thing like that.
Yeah, his whole channel's like that.
Right, yeah.
It's like, and he's got millions and millions of subscribers. It's crazy.
You see all these things targeted at you as a creator on TikTok and Instagram now of how to beat the algorithm and do all that. And I saw someone saying one of the techniques, and this is what's wrong with the internet is, and it's clever, but it's also what's wrong with the internet. You go to Google, search for any question, like how many people live in Ohio or whatever. Why is Toledo such a dangerous city? And he says, just make content answering Google's top questions. So this was his idea for content creators, which is funny because they have no purpose
Yeah.
creating
Right.
content. They're just looking to create content.
They also don't know anything about what they're creating content about.
Yeah.
But they know that people are searching for this thing.
Yeah.
If you make a video, you'll get the clicks, especially if you SEO, search engine optimize.
It's getting really annoying because I had like 30 or 40 pounds of cabbage that we harvested from before the freeze, and I wanted to make some kimchi and some sauerkraut, and I was just looking up different recipes and different ways to do it. And like the first page of Google are those blogs that are really annoying where they start with their life story before they actually get to the recipe. But then a lot of it is actually AI, it's got to be AI, writing blogs or recipes about things because it makes no sense. Like the grammar, everything is it's like a robot's writing it and they don't know what they're talking about. And it's getting really annoying to have to search for things like sauerkraut's a simple thing. It's really simple to make, and somehow these blogs are making it impossible to understand.
Again, you see, it's interesting. It's not the AI doing this. It's the way it's been trained, actually. It's a human fault because Google has taught it to favor certain things. Because interestingly enough, if you go put in kimchi recipe in Chat GPT, ask it, give me an authentic Korean recipe for kimchi, you'll get back an authentic recipe for kimchi with no bullshit, no stories about, how I used to make this back in whenever,
Yeah,
But that's because they're building that now and it hasn't been monetized yet.
Right. The minute it gets put out into the corporate or the world, they're going to find a way to make it bad again.
Or it's just the fact that the people willing to pay for things, including prominence, are going to rise to the top of that of the algorithm. The cadence thing is really funny about the YouTuber because that's happened over the past 10 years, I'd say, where the content has gotten more and more professional to the point where, YouTube used to be this like handheld thing, kind of guerrilla warfare style, what's that? Blair Witch Project. It was like the Blair Witch Project of content. And now they're newscasters. And you wonder why a newscaster talks like that in such a kind of perfected cadence with everything, is because they need to be repeatable. But YouTubers, now that they get to the point where they have to make a video a week and satisfy their, 4 million subscribers, like Adam Neely, that guy's got one of the best YouTube channels on music ever. But he's developed this cadence of talking where he sounds like a newscaster now. And
Well, when I edit clips for this podcast, it's very useful to be forced into thinking about yourself ending up being clipped, because I go through our podcasts and it's very hard to find little 15-second or 30-second clips because we talk in long form with a lot of interruptions and you kind of go off topic. I even find myself observing myself doing it now. There was a short point to be made, but you try to expand it in a normal conversation. For a clip, it has to be quick. So there is a benefit to doing all this and to applying what the algorithm wants you to do, because it does make you talk a little more succinctly. I think it's when it drives too much of the thought process, where like you end up again with these situations of people only thinking, what would the algorithm like? It's one thing to think, okay, we need to be a little more succinct in the way we talk.
Yeah.
This is entertainment. It's another thing to think the algorithm likes videos about Acura Integras. I'm going to give them that. I don't care about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what. Yeah, there's obviously the people doing it consciously, but there's an unconscious aspect of it, which is that when you start to make content for your subscribers and try to make it reliable, you start to automatically curate yourself.
Yeah.
And
also the production value of some of these YouTube channels has gone up. I mean, because when we got it, we had you have to hit a certain amount of subscribers, and then you get access to some of the YouTube facilities in your city. And if you're in LA or if you're in New York, YouTube has studios. So like if you all of a sudden go viral and within a few months you're shot up to 500,000 subscribers or 100,000 subscribers and you're getting millions of views on your videos, then you get access to some of this really top-end equipment and studios, and now all of a sudden there are these like brand new people to production value or to producing stuff, making content for YouTube.
yeah,
That like Mr. Beast, who's obviously the biggest YouTuber ever, talks a lot about the inside mechanics of how it all works, and it's crazy to watch him talk about that because he's operating now at the level of like NBC or CBS. His productions, he's spending $15 million per video.
but I thought that's because he gives stuff away to people.
Well, he gives stuff away, or they'll go rent a freaking yacht to do one of their little things. But I'm saying it's the new mainstream media, but at the same time, everyone's mentality is he was just this young dude who started doing YouTube videos. So now the expectation is that everyone needs to be on that level of production, and it's too much.
Did you see the one
go to
where-
the chat real quick, just while Dylan was talking about kimchi, Team Boba Fett says try Chef Choi from the movie Chef, Roy Choi, the Korean barbecue trucks in LA he was famous for. Try his recipe for kimchi. That's probably a good suggestion.
He's the guy who does the grilled cheeses.
Yeah.
But
he also kind of started the whole Korean barbecue like Mexican fusion thing that happened. That like you can't go to any city now that doesn't have a Korean Mexican fusion restaurant.
Yeah.
Most kimchi calls for fish paste, and like I've started eating some fish lately, but fish paste is is disgusting. Even when you go to Thai restaurants, almost everything's with fish paste, and I'll still ask for if they can cook without it because there's something so off about it. It's like I feel like it was used because it was a preservative for a long time, and I feel like it's maybe people have just gotten used to that taste, but I can't stand it.
You're not meant to brush your teeth with it.
Pernilla on the chat's asking, what's our opinion on these short-form green screen duetted videos where one person just makes a series of goofy facial expressions over someone else's video before adding in their 2 cents? It really depends on who does it, because I've seen them where they're done and it's really funny. The perfect reaction video with nothing in it. There's also that account that we all follow, Chef Reactions, where he's not just making facial expressions, he's commenting on it. But that's better in most cases than the original content. other than when he's doing like that chef Amari, or the French dude that makes sculptures out of chocolate.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, the whole point of that is that it's his commentary that is good. But yeah, if you're just talking about the videos of, I mean, it's like anything. Most content sucks. Most things, they're not going to be good. It's a weird thing to do. The reaction, because you have to you can tell often when they're pretending to watch it for the first time. They've recorded it 5 times.
Yeah.
And they're like now having to act out their reactions. There's something funny about genuine reaction videos where someone says, "Hey, come watch this," and they film their reaction.
Yeah, there's that funny account. I think they're brothers. These 2 dudes who take a giant gulp of water and then watch a video and basically spit it out if it makes them laugh. And
Right.
I've seen a bunch of them where you can tell now they're into the shtick of it, but the original ones of that were they make you laugh because it's a genuine reaction of laughter.
Yeah. Content.
I guess Dylan isn't
Content.
interested in trying some Norwegian shrimp cheese in a tube. I don't know what that is, but that sounds like the end of the world.
Shrimp cheese.
In
Well,
a tube.
all the Norwegian and Scandinavian countries, think about winter up there. There's no way to survive if you didn't preserve anything and everything. So you end up with these pungent things. Like, what's the shark thing they do? We've probably talked about that. There's a certain shark they preserve that becomes so poisonous if it's not prepared correct. It's like the eating the puffer fish in Japan.
When you go to whatever you're about to do, I'm going to send you a link from Instagram. That's one of those reaction videos. Which the original video I thought was, it's kind of annoying, but it's actually I can picture it going very viral very soon if it hasn't already. I'll send it on Signal.
All right, cool. I wanted to pull this up real quick. So everyone knows who Nostradamus is. He has made a bunch of predictions that have come true and others that haven't. Here's what he allegedly, according to this article on the Jerusalem Post, predicted for 2023. He says that a failed economy could lead to cannibalism. Humanity may face the threat of cannibalism due to failing economy. He wrote, "There are no abbots, monks, no novices to teach. Honey will cost much more than candle wax. The price of wheat will be high. Man will be agitated and eat his friend in despair." So we'll come back to that because it's like one of those things you got to read it and see what was he actually meaning. And one line stands out in particular. It reads, 7 months of great war. People die because of evil, but their light will not fall into the hands of the king. Another prediction was that there would be a change on the British Isles. Quote, "Because they disapproved of his divorce, a man who later they considered unworthy, the people will force out of the king of the islands. A man will replace him who never expected to be king." So people think that refers to Charles. And then...
I mean, you could reliably predict divorce controversy with the royal family.
Yeah.
They invented fucking divorce.
Divorce fucking. He also wrote here, "Heavenly fire when the lights of Mars go out," so people are tying that to Musk and trying to go to Mars and all that sort of thing. And then one more thing, he says, "The dry land will dry up even more, and there will be great floods when you see the rainbow." So
This guy was high out of his mind, dude.
it's one of those things I'd love to see. I'm sure someone's done it, like an accurate assessment of how many have come true where there was enough specificity that it wasn't just like, well, there's going to be some pestilence and plagues, because that's always going to be the case. Nevertheless, he's captured people's psychology for whatever 400 years that it's been. So something about him has got some mystery to him. And then again, like with that first one that you're reading here, it's people like when you read the Bible and ancient writing, it's always a question of how it's being written. Is it in using the form of allegory to get people to think about themselves? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Honey will cost much more than candle wax. Like, is he literally talking about honey, or is he talking about the fruit of a labor, like the different aspects of things that are created by beings? It's interesting.
I mean, I think that's definitely the case already. Honey's very expensive.
Pernilla from England saying, please force out Boris. I thought he was gone. Wait, I don't know.
No, I think. Wait, did he come back after the who was the lady who stepped down? This shows you how well we're informed about UK politics.
Boris.
Yeah, Netanyahu's back as well now.
Really?
Yeah, I think he just got voted back in, something like that. It's just like a carousel of leaders. They just keep on going if they're in the same family.
Yeah, one begins to think that there's a ruling class that runs everything.
I just sent
Either
you,
that or God has run out of extras.
I sent you that link there.
I can play?
Yeah, you should be able to. I thought it was pretty weird. Just watch it more for the original video. The reaction video is like, okay, whatever.
Okay, so I'm going to pull the screen. Here we go. Oh, that's definitely going to go viral.
I heard it before I saw it, and I thought someone had put a beat to someone actually laughing, and I was like, oh, that's pretty good. But that's going to be one of those reaction videos because you're going to see people trying to mimic the face of it.
That is now the thing, just getting a sound that clicks.
Yeah.
Or anything. I think that was that comedian girl. She's got a new show on Showtime, I think. Do you know anything about that video?
Which video? The
one that we just watched.
No, I don't know anything about it.
Because I keep seeing her. I think it's her shows come up. All right, this is a question. You guys were talking about this last night. We were out at a bar, and you were talking about this dude here, Elon Ma. I thought this was a face swap thing. Is it not? Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I thought it was real.
Okay, so there's this guy who's huge on TikTok. He's a Chinese influencer, comedian or something that I thought was a face swap, making jokes about Elon Musk. Someone last night, and maybe I'm just being fucking pranked or trolled, said that he actually is just a doppelganger. He really looks like him and is capitalizing on that. So you guys tell me. I don't know. Someone in the chat, please tell us if that Elon Ma guy on TikTok is real or not.
I've never even seen a...
Hi, everyone. I'm Elon Ma. Okay. Oh yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Elon Ma. FTX. Money. Okay.
Just play another one because you can. If he turns his head.
Everyone, I'm Elon Ma. Money. Give it to you.
This is the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Because I love you. Everyone, I'm.
So
I can't actually.
I can't tell
can't
because
tell.
I can't tell if this is if the entire video is AI.
I was gonna say it's real because he turns his head, and usually the face swap stuff is you can see it looks fake when they turn the head a little bit. But now with watching that Tom Cruise guy, the guy that does it's actually impossible to tell.
yeah, I mean that was
The
my
only way you
assumption
can
that it's
tell-
a face swap.
Right.
It's a Chinese actor, and his name might actually be like Elon Ma. That sounds phonetically like Elon Musk. But then that dude, I couldn't tell if that dude last night was just trolling us, saying no, he's a real dude, and he's just doing this
I
doppelganger.
mean,
thing.
either way,
because
it doesn't make it like there's no answer that makes it any more or less weird.
Yeah. Right, because he's either the face swap has gotten so good that there's no trusting anything you see anymore, or there are literally like 5 or 6 or 7 different types of people in the world, and then God just cloned them all around the world, country or all around the world, and we're just starting to see it now because of the internet.
I mean, I guess we're not wrong in having this question because people are asking, is it a deep fake or is he actually a doppelganger?
Maybe this is whoever's developing deepfake stuff is like
This is the best way to advertise it
you
or
have to test it,
Yeah.
because that it will get to the point where unless they develop some sort of verification system, but even then, it's going to get to the point where no one's going to know if a video is real or fake.
Pernilla says he has the hair Elon always dreamed of. Yeah, he had much better set of hair than Elon Musk.
I always thought he did get hair plugs, right, Elon Musk?
It's something, yeah.
But I don't know how it works. Supposedly they sew in or they actually plug real hair into your head.
With the follicles, I believe.
Yeah, and then it actually stimulates growth or something like that. It actually grows out.
I don't know.
I don't know.
If anyone's on the chat that knows how it works, because I heard that it actually starts stimulating growth, like the hair starts to grow.
I don't know how. I've heard similar things. I've never looked into because it always seemed like one of those snake oil thing that always like hair loss. It's like that joke in Idiocracy. Like scientists, instead of focusing on whatever the big problems of the day are, figured out erections and hair loss.
Yeah.
So it always seems like a snake oils thing. But maybe they've gotten good at it now because clearly there are people out there like Donald Trump that's got a great fake hair that's his.
They get British darts champions to just throw them in one at a time.
Do you remember we were on tour and we played that show in DC and one of Sean's friends or something like that? He's quite a famous reporter.
Oh yeah.
He spent like 5 months following Trump in the election.
That was
cycle.
Max's friend. He was
Max's
a reporter
friend,
at the
right, yeah.
Washington Post or something.
Yeah. I forgot his name, but anyway, he's a well-known journalist. He was on Air Force One. He traveled around with Trump for months and months, and he said that his hair actually is real, but he literally spends an hour to 2 hours a day getting it. So that it's very thin, and he combs it over and sprays it into like a helmet so that it doesn't move, and that it's actually real.
That's actually worse. He should just have fake hair. If someone spends that amount of effort on their hair.
I mean, the NFT thing that he released recently, did you guys see that? Did you see Donald Trump?
I saw some
his
of
trading
them,
cards. Kenny tweeted, and he came to my mind, Kenny Karkid, if he's watching, which he's probably not, little asshole. He tweeted, he's like, "Don't make me like him." he's like, Trump trading cards might be the one thing that gets me to like Trump. Because he said big announcement, had this whole build up, and then they were $100 trading cards.
And it's him in like
Superman
outfits.
Yeah, we talked about that on the other podcast on the guest list that I go on sometimes, and I didn't think it was real at first, and they said, "No, look it up." And then there are these fucking pictures of him like Captain America.
They sold out, and do you know what they like? I actually thought about it. I'm like, I should buy one of these because they're going to go up. So they're going to go up in price. They were started at $100, and within the first week, they were like selling on some of the chains for $600.
That's insane. Like, leave it to Trump to wait for the biggest kind of scandals in the whole crypto world and all that to then do it.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, NFTs, the thing that people hate now? Yeah, I'm going to do that.
Yeah. Complete collapse of the NFT and crypto market. Let's start it now.
It would be fascinating to actually meet him because his brain works different.
That's
than
what
everyone.
Penn Jillette, there's a clip of him talking about that fact. Because he was on The Apprentice, and someone was saying, like, how can you talk to Trump?
Talking about it on the chat.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
No,
it's
no,
hard.
no, yeah.
That's a very common theme lately. Is it real or not? Is that guy real? Was that news story real? But Penn Jillette was talking about Trump, and he was basically saying, like, I'll talk to anyone who has removed some of their filters.
Yeah.
So, just I want some access into the raw thing going on in a person's mind. And he's like, Trump has removed some of his filters. Obviously, he's got massive, enormous, disproportionate defense mechanisms. But at the same time, he's removed a couple filters. And he was basically saying, the crazy person at the end of the bar, I'll talk to that person. Any crazy person, because it's stimulating and it's different than talking to a person who's entirely buffered.
I think that's part of the appeal of these people. Like, that pretend, they always pretend like they're free speech advocates. Like Trump
Right.
particularly pretends like this is all about free speech. Obviously, like he had his own social network where they banned
Right, yeah.
people from saying things. But there is an appeal to someone that speaks freely because we all know that we don't. And it's
Right.
frustrating constantly censoring yourself and your thoughts. And you'd wish that you could.
Well,
A part of you does.
I mean, half the time I wish I knew what I thought. You know
Well,
what I mean?
yeah,
Like I wish
without getting deep about it.
yeah.
But yeah.
It's not even like this desire to speak freely. It's more like, what do I actually? Because if you start thinking, you start getting paralyzed with contradictions.
Well, I saw a quote from is it John? Is it McAfee? McAfee, who's the security guy, the internet security guy, John
Yeah.
Mackey.
The guy who was in Belize. And,
Yeah, that guy.
McAfee.
He's a crazy guy.
Yeah.
I saw a quote from him though, and he was asked. He said something like, I don't have opinions on anything. He's like, how can I have an opinion on any? He's talking about current events. He's like, because you can't. Nothing's real. Like nothing you read about, nothing you see on TV is real. He was talking about how there's so much like propaganda and all that stuff. And
Oh, he wasn't talking
misinformation.
about like Maya.
No. I don't think he was going that deep. But he's like, I don't have any opinions on any of the current events because he's like, how could you have an opinion on things? And I feel like that's a lot of when you start to get upset about something, or you start to see someone else get riled up about, especially a political topic.
Mm-hmm.
I start to feel this because I do it too. But then I start to feel this thing like, do I actually believe in what I'm feeling right now or thinking about this one subject? Because who knows if the contents of what I'm actually seeing are real.
We have these weird blinders. People look to the distant past and go, obviously they were being manipulated. When you look at like the beginning of the printing press and the fact that the church took it over, was unhappy because people would now be able to read the Bible, and for 1,000 years they'd been just telling them, and it was like they were a controlled source. And they go, that was crazy. And they look through every aspect of history and go, it's all been this lie. And it's not been what reality is. And then the closer they get to our current time period, the more the blinders come on. They go, oh, I believe this that's going on. Now it's like it's a weird thing to look back historically at everything that's happened, all the wars that were committed on false premises, all the scandals, all the everything, and then, oh, not happening now. And it must be some preservation thing. Like you can't accept that all of what we're living in right now is a giant myth on both a superficial level in terms of politics and that, and then also like like what Danny was saying about Maya.
Yeah.
It must be like, okay, fuck it. It's fine. I accept what you're saying.
Yeah.
We did land on the moon.
I don't. For me, it's that level of manipulation is basically boring. Or not boring. It's not that interesting to me. I just take it for granted. The fact that there is people trying to turn things to their advantage in the world. That's not necessarily related to reality.
No, but I'm saying it's that if we can't agree even that the surface is a bit of an illusion and a game, that maybe it can't be any different. I'm not saying like morally it's bad that the whole of history has just been this like manipulation that everyone's playing the game to serve their own purposes. But if you can't look at that, because there are some people that still like literally buy every news story that's ever been, like they just live in this rosy world where everything's like, well, no, they said they were going to do this and then they did it, But it must be a reflection also of how you reflect on your own sense of illusion.
But maybe that's a desirable state because that's an
I mean,
indication.
ignorance is bliss.
Or
sort of
innocence. Innocence or naivety, like, or a lack, like the idea that sophistication is really corruption of a person in the literal sense. That's where the word comes from. To be sophisticated is to be, for the a chemical solution to be impure.
Yeah, but I don't think that most of it's coming from a position of like innocence in like the Garden of Eden sense of innocence.
No,
Like,
it was just some kind of self-calming.
yeah, I think it's
I think so is the idea that everything is an illusion. That's also a form of self-calming because
because what you're saying is sophisticated and complication of things is it's not that you need to see that and then like you've opened up the matrix sort of thing. It's just more, and I don't know, like that you have to be in a state of questioning generally
Yeah.
to be finding what. If you're not in a state of questioning, then you're not in the truth.
That makes more sense. But then you also meet people who just they'll say something along the lines of, "Ah, man, they're just trying to control us," and they'll just it's a non-thought basically, and they're
Yeah.
not in a state of questioning. They already have what they accept about the world.
Well, yes, there's the naive people that think everything's been good and the government has always told the truth and that thing, and then there's the other side that like they're evil or like we could fix it, or like it's not an inevitability,
or that everyone in a position in a position of power is evil. That
Right.
I find very boring. It's because it's like everyone's in differing degrees of power.
Yeah.
And so does it? How do you kind of soul gaze like that? You know, how do you know that someone who's in some sort of elevated position is bad? Or I don't know.
Well, speaking
The-
of truth, go ahead.
Or I just want to look at the chat there. It's not related to anything you guys are saying. Team Boba Fett says hair transplantation involves removing small punch grafts from the hair, bearing scalp or a larger piece of this scalp from a donor area, and cutting this into smaller pieces to use as grafts. These grafts are then relocating to a bald or thinning area of the scalp. That sounds fucking insane.
So you have another man's scalp on you?
Fuck.
Well, maybe they can take it from different parts of your own hair. I don't know.
Oof. It actually brings up an interesting question, though, because, where's that line of changing your physical appearance, basically? Because hair transplants and balding are like, it's still totally permissible to make fun of. It's like the one thing that you can still talk about and be like, put it down or whatever, or make fun of someone like Elon Musk for getting hair transplants. Like, why?
Well, because I think the reason it's acceptable to make fun of is because I think everyone deep down knows that it's really a sign of weakness if you are that consumed with your physical appearance to go to such extremes to do it. We're not talking about like that. I've thought about this a lot, like plastic surgery. Where do I draw the line? Because if someone was a burn victim, like there are cases where you're like, well, yeah, we really need to help certain people. But, it is a gray area line. Like, well, what if someone's just really ugly and they want to fix their fucking nose? Is there anything wrong with that?
There's no morality about any of it.
No, I'm not. I don't. Yeah. I literally don't believe in morals,
including like criticizing it.
Yeah.
Like there's no. You can do what you want, and you can criticize what you want, and then people can criticize you back. It's all fucking meaningless.
Well, isn't that the good place to say? Like, you can do whatever you want. I can say whatever I want about.
And then
what
you can
do.
say that I'm being,
insensitive.
Judged. Like none of it matters.
There's a gym. I don't know where it was. It was a really good ad. I thought it's something said that it was a big billboard that said like, sick and tired of being fat and ugly, come to our place and you can just be ugly. It was, and they got so much shit for it. They just got reamed for putting up a big billboard like it's insensitive. It's like, it's a good bill. That's a really good billboard.
But
That's
it's also
really good
it's
joke
insensitive. The only reason people are so sensitive about it is because it's an indication of how all-consuming it is for so much of the world. Is the appearances. It's all-consuming.
Yeah.
It's there's as soon as you find something of substance, the effect that appearances have on you diminish. So it's not that this shit matters. It's an indication of a lack in some other area. I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not leaving space for something.
Yeah, for
more
something
real.
more. Yeah.
But I wonder, though, you can't talk about the ideas of beauty or ugliness and aesthetics without wondering whether it does relate to something more profound. Like, why is all of nature apparently following a move towards beauty?
It's not. What are you defining as beauty?
Well, I mean,
Because
it's subjective to each
Right.
thing. Like birds go through their elaborate dances and mating rituals and sexually select based on appearance, a lot of it appearance, which represents.
But you're
in the
seeing
most-
one side of the picture. Like I could easily say that the maggots, and rotting decay, which is an equally necessary part of everything.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. See, if we didn't, that's what's interesting thought about it. because it's bi-directional,
which
Like
is an
there-
indication of that neither exist, I think.
Yeah, ultimately. But I'm saying there's a move towards beauty, what we typically as humans would call beauty, proportion, all the things we understand about that. But there is the other side of the universe. Maybe it's maggots, fungi, and stuff towards death, or what we think of as horror.
You're talking about beauty in the sense of like what attracts people to procreate.
Yeah, but I mean, that appears to be one of the major functions of life, or the only function of life.
Yeah, I think it kind of boils down to a form of holistic health. Have you ever seen that Roald Dahl? It's from one of his books. I'm not sure. I think I just sent it to Signal. There's an image he talks about beauty, and it's pretty simple but pretty profound. I think the way I'll let you just pull it up.
What is that last comment on the stream? How have I just tuned in onto a stream of a band not talking about their music but hair trans? Because do you know how hard it is to talk about music for?
Yeah, especially your own music.
I could see this image.
He captured in his tiny, very simplistic drawings, he captured the essences of people, I think, which I think this
Is
is
this
what...
from the Twits?
I don't know if it's from the Twits. I think he used some of these drawings in the Twits, which was like a perfect representation of what's ugly.
Do you want to just read it? Because
Oh, yeah, I need to put my glasses on. I'm not sure what the context is. It's coming. I don't know what book it's from. Why would that happen? I'll tell you why. If a person has ugly thoughts, it begins to show on their face. And when that person has ugly thoughts every day, every week, every year, the face gets uglier and uglier until it gets so ugly you can hardly look at it. A person who has good thoughts cannot ever be ugly. You can have a wonky nose and a crooked mouth and a double chin and stick out teeth, but if you have good thoughts, they will shine out of your face like sunbeams and you always look lovely. And like those simplistic drawings really capture the essence of that, because you can meet people that are physically, you could say like objectively, not symmetrical, not pretty, whatever you want to words you want to use, but there's a vibration coming from them, which is completely the opposite. It's an attractive vibration.
I've thought that when we went to Colombia, because we travel all around the world, and the people in Colombia are beautiful, like physically, like literally, they're beautiful people. Yeah. But then there was a radiance, like we meet thousands and thousands, or we used to meet thousands and thousands of fans, and you meet all different kinds of people. And there was something in Colombia where people just had this glow and smile in their face. It made everyone seem more attractive than they literally were.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of it's got to do with sun. I think when people haven't seen the sun in so long, they start getting miserable.
Yeah, but at the same time, in terms of external beauty, like some of the most beautiful people in the world are in Ukraine or like the Scandinavian countries. So, but yeah, it's an attitude. It is quite a profound thing. I forgot about this. I forget what
it is.
I think
So
it's
someone's
the
saying it
Witches
is
or something, that Roald Dahl book.
No, Pernilla's saying it is from the Twits, and that I remember reading that as a kid, and just everything about his descriptions and the drawings, and they're so simple, just like made you feel gross.
I just remember the idea that he would get food in his beard and save it for later.
Yeah.
I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
I thought it was.
All right, so here's a news story that came up. China could claim the moon as its territory and ban the USA from landing there. Again, like I only click on bad news sources,
Right?
Because there only are bad news sources. But nevertheless, there's an arms race going on towards the moon right now because China's trying to get there, I believe, by 2024, or NASA's trying to get back by 2024. With a mind, China has now a mind of, by the 2030s or early 40s, of having a base established on the moon for Mars-related travel. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
Do you have a flag? That kind of territorial thing reminds me of Eddie Izzard's bit about that, where the British land in India, and they say it's ours now, and they say no, but we've been here for thousands of years. And do you have a flag? Are they trying to mine the moon, or that kind of stuff? I know they have loose plans about asteroid mining and all that, because I talked to a petroleum engineer, and he was saying the shortages that people aren't thinking about are things like sand for concrete. He's saying like there's massive shortages in certain kinds of sand that are used in all, because construction is just going insane, especially in China, you know.
I don't want to sound like that senator that's asking the general about if they put too many soldiers on Guam, will it sink? But if we bring too many asteroids here, won't we like make the Earth too heavy? Here's an account I came across called Radvertising. It's something. It's like where ads go to die. It's just old ads, and they're fucking funny to watch. Some of them.
Has this ever happened to you?
Hey, baby, you come here often? That used to happen to me until I started calling the pickup line. Now I've got more girls than I can handle. The pickup line taught me where to meet girls, how to meet them, and what to say. And most importantly, 976 Guts gave me the guts.
If you want to be popular with girls, call 976 Guts. $2 plus toll, if any. 976 GUTS. Call now. Has this ever happened to you?
No! It's a great. I won't play too many of them. It's what is the account? Oh yeah, Radvertising_co. It's a funny account with just old ads that are hilarious. Obviously.
Jeez.
What degree of self-awareness was there in that we're not perceiving, or was it truly like that silly?
I think a lot of shit was just that silly, you know.
It's still that silly as well, though, because I've been watching Yellowstone, and you have to watch it on Peacock. You know, and Peacock, even if you pay for the thing, they still put like 3 or 4 ads throughout the whole show. And it's been a long time since I've seen like TV ads, and they are ridiculous. They are so bad, so stupid.
Yeah,
it's when you've been away from it, you kind of get used to it. If you've watched TV, and you just kind of accept how bad they are. But then if you've been away from it for a few years, it's ridiculous.
Let's do deep thoughts really quickly.
Deep thoughts.
Science.
Deep thoughts.
Religion. Music.
Deep thoughts.
Physics. Artificial intelligence. NPR.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Deep thoughts.
So Danny did a big tweet. You want to tell us about it?
Oh yeah, I got so many likes on my tweet, which is very satisfying. No, this guy Nassim Nicholas Taleb. If you don't follow him on Twitter, you should go follow him. I think he keeps his account private. I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, that would explain it, because when I was trying to view it from a different Twitter account, some of the replies and stuff were hidden.
Yeah, and I'm waiting till I get blocked because he's like a notorious blocker. He even like wrote some algorithms to block anyone who had mentioned certain terms or something like that. You know, like he just. So he's
like a guy at a party, like, I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
I think he's got a point, which is that he doesn't want to get lost in the noise of Twitter. He's there for his own experience, you know. But he's a super fascinating guy, because he's this weird mix of insane intelligence and then like blinding stupidity. It's such a weird mix. He's so interesting. Anyway, he tweeted something like, if you don't get why between 2019 and 2022, I turned down exactly 10 requests to be on his podcast. This will provide a succinct explanation.
Talking about Lex Fridman.
Yeah, exactly. Lex Fridman, who's the kind of Russian MIT, guy in the suit who talks about whatever he talks about, tweeted out a list of books that he was reading. And the book list was, I guess...
Well, just what were some of the books?
I can't view the bloody tweet now. Can you?
I mean, there's a lot. I saw. I remember it was like 1984. Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse.
Taleb's main problem with him was that he said he was going to read the brothers Karamazov or whatever, the Dostoevsky book in a week, and Taleb said you need at least 3 to 6 months for that to digest it, which he's probably right. You know, it's one of these legendary books that I've never even attempted to read because I didn't want to. Anyway, all I said to him was, is it because you're smarter and stronger and better looking than him and better at following orthodox fasting? Also, is it true you once swam into the depths of the ocean on one breath and single-handedly wrestled a giant squid to the surface and squeezed it onto a bowl of pasta? And I thought this was like the most obscure thing I could ever tweet. Like I was expecting 0 likes, and it got like 1,300 likes. I guess because people are so familiar with his idiosyncrasies.
Yeah, I guess I didn't know who he was because you sent us the picture of the
Yeah.
tweet, like saying, "Hey, look, this tweet's blown up." I didn't see the likes, so I just saw this obscure tweet. And I didn't get it. I was like, "Explain to me who this Talib guy is." I don't know any of the context of it. And then I finally looked and saw like, "Holy shit, this is blown up." I think you could also just have tweeted at both of them, "Fucking nerds."
He's so aggressive about stuff. You know, he's like always aggressively. And he calls it like BS busting and busting a myth and busting, you know, it's always like he's fighting evil in his mind, you know, the fighting the evil of ignorance. Oh, this is an even better tweet of his. I'll try to find it here because it was fucking remarkable, I thought. Sorry, just give me one second.
yeah,
When
what-
when hearing bad reasoning, I used to feel a jar, similar to a series of wrong notes in a familiar piano piece. Later, someone who BS'd, even a single time, had the same effect as someone with bad breath that you unconsciously avoid. Today, a bullshitter feels like a carrier of Ebola. So I said to that, well, when I hear bad reasoning, I feel the suffering of all organic life on Earth. So I think I win this one, Nassim. I'm the best at feeling bad about bad reasoning. Take the loss.
Dude, I think you need to just keep up these tweets with him.
I'm going to get blocked. The only reason I haven't been blocked is because we have a Greek last name. He's like...
But this is what happens when bro culture, you know, like bullying, finds its way into pseudo-intellectualism.
He's not a pseudo-intellectual.
No,
He's
I'm not
like
saying him particularly as a pseudo-intellectual, but like this modern podcaster, like thinker on Twitter. They just want to, you know, punch their friends and like make fun of people for like social posturing, and it comes across like it's got bigger words.
This is essentially what Twitter has done, though, because they are real intellectuals in their fields.
Right.
But that Tim Dillon YouTube that you sent or Joe sent, he's the comedian Tim Dillon. He talks about these guys, and it's kind of obvious. But he just says like, "What the fuck are they doing all day?" He's like, they say they're doing this and coding this. He's like, but they just spent 9 hours on a Twitter chat, you know, like on a Twitter circle. He's like, are they doing anything? They're supposed to be these geniuses coding, like saving the world, but they're just sitting there, like, and going back and forth tweeting at each other.
Well, part of the problem is this. They talk about it a lot in the science circles, like how difficult it is to get published and how much and to get funding for your studies. So you have to get published. And it's like this vicious circle of you need to be publicly aware or make people publicly aware of what you're doing so you can get funding to do the science. So now it's this vicious circle of people having to develop a personal persona out for the world on Instagram so they can do the real work of science. And it starts to gobble up doing the actual work. And we feel that, I think, the same thing of we probably should just work on music, but then we work on 3 albums, put them out, no one really hears them. And we're like, well, fuck it, we got to become podcasters or Twitchers or whatever it is. So it's a vicious circle.
I mean, this could also be like a Steam release, you know, for an hour a week, we just let out all the bullshit. And then
Well, maybe this is a take that would bring it back to some deep thoughts, is that Dad sent us that audio, or is it Curio, on toys. Did you listen to it?
No, I haven't.
Because it was Christmas and some of our nieces' birthdays, and so there was a lot of gift buying and gift receiving, and this Curio is an article about toys and the benefit of toys and the downsides of toys and what toys should potentially be for a child. And he was making the point that basically, like, every toy company is now advertising to people that this new toy is going to make their kid the next genius, like the next Einstein, because it's a toy that stimulates logical thinking or rational thinking. And it was a really interesting article, basically, that I thought about, and we talked about it yesterday, is that everything is trying to mold these little children who are probably the most pure and having the most objective experience of the world and the universe into the next person who can beat someone in an argument on Twitter.
Right.
Like it's become basically just an intellectual competition from the day they're born until they get a Twitter account. And there's no development or no emphasis on being. It's all on intellect and no emphasis on being. And some of the examples that he gave in the article of toys, which I thought were really good ones, were like the Magic 8 Ball is a really good toy. There was one like an ice cream parlor, because it encourages, he says it's 90% the child and 10% the toy. The ice cream parlor requires imagination. Every time there's a new customer, you have to interact with someone. And so they have to constantly be inventing and using their imagination. And the 8 Ball is a good one. It only says yes, no, maybe. You have to ask a million questions to the 8 Ball, and it's still around as like one of the most popular toys. And the other examples of the bad toys were like a till, a cash register. He was saying that the ones that really developed a proper, like a holistic imagination for the child was one where it was very simple. It was just a cash register that opened, and you had to imagine the money and imagine the scenario. And the other ones that had buttons and noises, and they was like teaching the child how to count and do arithmetic, they ended up within a few minutes just liking to press the buttons. So they'd sit there and press all the buttons.
Training
without knowing it.
lab rats that like sugar.
Yeah.
So okay, I had not read that or seen that thing that Dad had sent, but I started reading. I thought that the tie-in for me with the Talib Lex Friedman thing was he had a bunch of books on there, and I imagine he was probably going to read Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. Mm-hmm. So my book that I probably should have read when I was just in high school is The Perennial Philosophy by Aldous Huxley that I started listening to, a book on tape of. And here's a quote from it, I think that ties into everything that we're discussing about. And he says, although the resources of our almost miraculous... All the resources of our almost miraculous technology have been thrown into the current assault against silence. That most popular and influential of all recent inventions, the radio, is nothing but a conduit through which prefabricated din can flow into our homes. And this din goes far deeper, of course, than the eardrums. It penetrates the mind, filling it with a babble of distractions, news items, mutually irrelevant bits of information, blasts of corybantic or sentimental music, continually repeated doses of drama that bring no catharsis, but merely create a craving for daily or even hourly emotional enemas. And this book is just filled with like some of the most profound thought ever, not just from him because he's referencing every great tradition, but yeah, these toys, because I think about this a lot now with Juna, of somehow allowing the imagination and not just daydreaming, but like perceiving
creative imagination.
Yeah, perceiving the world and seeing what they could bring to it. It's just being killed and stifled. And I think like he's talking about here with the radio, he would say the same thing about Twitter or Twitch or whatever it is. Like it's the noise aspect of it that is detrimental. It's not the technology itself. It's not even the toys itself. It's the fact that you are making too much noise for a quiet moment to enter into anyone.
But this is Talib's justification for blocking everyone.
Was that it's too much noise?
Yeah, he doesn't want to deal with it. Basically, he always uses the term heuristic, which is like a shortcut. So if someone says something which he thinks is indicative of insincerity or maliciousness or stupidity, he blocks them. And he eliminates them from his Twitter feed. I think, which is not a crazy idea, but he's created an echo chamber through that. So like,
not just the ultimate filter would be something in his brain that separates his internal reaction from the thing he does. I'm not saying don't just block certain people.
That's what I'm getting at, is that there is, yes, the noise does enter your mind, and that seems unavoidable. But the whole idea of separating the wheat from the chaff can't possibly exist as some sort of mechanical process by which you isolate yourself from negative influences. Obviously, if someone's hitting you on the head with a hammer, you have to get out of that situation. You can't just imagine he's not.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, there's noise, no matter what.
Yeah, you can't.
And then internally generated noise as well.
Yeah, you can't manipulate your environment as the sole means for changing your internal environment. If you begin down that path thinking that you can manipulate, it's an endless and unwinnable thing to try and change the outer environment.
I think you have to change your environment, but it's not necessarily related. I think they both are true. Like,
I'm not saying that we don't. That's life. Life is manipulating the environment, but that's all that I think should be, because otherwise you end up. You can't change everything. You cannot change everything. You can perhaps change a lot more in your own mind, and this is what I think Aldous Huxley eventually gets you, because that's not the end of that. He's not saying like the radio is bad. That's not his point. Is that radio, the new technology, is bad. I highly recommend this book to everyone. It feels a little bit spectatorish in terms of, it's a synthesis of all the great ideas of the past put together, but it's really important because most of us don't even have just this surface level of understanding of these perennial philosophies. Another quote from this book that I thought was really interesting was, "The politics of those whose goal is beyond time are always pacific. It is the idolaters of past and future, of reactionary memory and utopian dream, who do the persecuting and make the wars." So pacific, he means like passive, like peaceful, basically. And I just thought that was an interesting way of putting it. The politics of those whose goal is beyond time is such a weird sentence, like he's saying the idolaters of past and future, the people that are trying to fix the past and future, are consumed by time and just this ever playing out flow of this existence that we are in, end up in the realms of utopianism and starting wars, trying to fix things constantly. Like it starts from a good place. Most people, it's utopianism of we're going to make everything better if we can just fix this and that and then move this thing here. And he's saying that the real peaceful, in a deep sense, solution lies outside of time. Yeah. And I think that was just such a profound way of putting it. The politics of those whose goal is beyond time are always pacific.
Well, it's like the term collateral damage, because if that term were to be taken literally and examined, you would say, what is the endless collateral damage of some decision? It's used in the sense of they use it in the sense of what kind of civilian death can we tolerate because of this action. But the collateral damage is perpetuated, obviously. It has a resonance.
Well, the ripple effect.
Yeah.
Anyway, check out this book. Anyone that's interested in this sort of thing, it draws from everything from like the Bhagavad Gita and Vedic teachings to Sufi things, the Bible, all the great teachings pulled together from a very current thinker in terms of like Western thoughts.
Have you ever seen him talk?
Current. A little bit, yeah.
Aldous Huxley, he talks like this. He sounds like that.
And he's obviously the Doors, the band, gets that from his book, The Doors of Perception, because he was one of the early psychedelic pioneers. I think even before the whole Timothy Leary movement, because this would have been in the 30s, 40s, 50s, I guess. I don't know if he was pre-LSD, because LSD only came about in the 50s or 60s, I think, right? Like, or at least the synthesized form of it.
It was Albert Hoffman. I think it was before that, but
okay,
yeah, maybe 50s.
Yeah, super interesting, dude. You guys want to do music next?
Sure.
Yeah.
So my track for this week, you guys know that artist Stromae?
Yeah.
He's a Belgian artist, sings in French. Most people think he's French, but he's actually Belgian. His parents were from Rwanda, I believe. So there's a lot of African influence in it. And I came across his stuff a long time ago, and he's just put out a new album last year, and it's really cool shit. And also very current and modern. It's refreshing, basically. I was on this other podcast with Kenny Carr-Keat, and we're doing like a year-end wrap-up, and they go like, what was your favorite album from 2022? And everyone's listing off their albums, and it gets to me, I'm like, dude, I cannot fucking think of anything. I hadn't found this album yet. So it's like nice when a grumpy old man like me can find a young, current artist that's doing something interesting. And visually, he's got that French thing. I know he's Belgian, but it's like there's a French thing where they have a fucking different way of looking at the world. Like Amélie directors Jean-Paul Caro and Augenot, they just see things differently than Americans or English people see things. And he's just got an amazing aesthetic to his music, and then kind of typical French chords, I would say. Like they use a small vocabulary of chords, but he's got a new twist on it with the African influence in the rhythms and everything. So check out his new album. There's a song that's really cool called L'Enfer. I don't know how to pronounce it. L'Enfer. L'Enfer, something like that. And then I don't have the lyrics picked for this week, but there's this album I came across. I'll show you a screen cap of it real quick. It's a compilation album called Cannabis Indica and Rebetica Songs, recordings 1931 to 1946. So it's a compilation of Rebetica, which is Greek folk music, all about weed, because they were some big wake and bakers, these old Greeks. Loved it. Like here's the track listing is The Point of Getting High. It's from 1946. Smoking the Hubble Bubble for Hours. When I Smoke Hookah Tobacco. Dying to Smoke. The Mangas Are Complaining. The Mangas is like a tough guy. So I was reading a little bit more about this Rebetica culture. Kind of came from like the streets of Greece and Turkey at the time, and it was just folk music from the streets and in the cafes and in the hookah spots, dens. Really cool shit, and just interesting because like you don't think of like weed culture always feels like it's so modern or new or like Southern California and that like it's been here for a couple thousand years, and the history of its use in music and everything's quite interesting.
I mean, it's pretty interesting because however many years ago, like 4, 5, 6 years ago, I grew a bunch of weed and started getting interested in all the strains and learning about the history of it. And if you look at the history of those different strains, which is they're saying indica, there's two major strains that, or it's not strains, two major varieties that developed, and they moved in different directions around the globe. Like indicas moved south into Arabic countries, Africa, Greece, Middle East, and the sativas moved north into Europe and into Russia. And there's another variety that stayed in Russia, like a wild variety. But anyway, the indicas, they have a certain effect. And I think it had an effect on all the music, all the thinking, all the types of art and philosophy. And it's generally like people talk about it as like a body relaxing, more sensing your body type of high, whereas the sativas are much more mentally stimulating, and they went into kind of like the Western European philosophies.
Yeah, if you listen to these songs, and then particularly some of that music from Epirus in Greece, it sounds like all the things people typically associate with indica, because it's like sleepy, stuck to your chair music.
Yeah.
It's not like the sativa, like psychedelic paranoid thing that you get from Northern European music. So yeah, check that out. It's an interesting album and really cool stuff. Dylan, you got something?
Yeah, I did. For the song I did, "Oh Atlanta" by Alison Krauss. Just a really, aside from the song and her voice, the recordings are just amazing. Some of the best recordings of band I found. Check that out. And then for the lyric, it came on one of the TV shows I was watching recently and hadn't heard in a while. And I remember that we play a cover of it is I Am the Walrus.
Oh yeah.
And the lyric, I've never really been able to decipher the lyric. I don't know if anyone really will be able to, because it's kind of stream of consciousness, but there are a few lines in it which I really like. They've always stuck with me. Even if they are just completely abstract and meaningless. Sitting on a cornflake, waiting for the van to come. Corporation T-shirt, stupid bloody Tuesday, man, you've been a naughty boy, you let your face grow long. And then another one, which I thought was really funny. This is where John Lennon's lyrics, I think, shine. Sitting in an English garden waiting for the sun. If the sun don't come, you get a tan from standing in the English rain.
Yeah, some of their stuff was so quirky and out there that it spawned a lot of things that did it badly. But when you listen to theirs, it's like it works.
Yeah,
it's not quirky purely for the sake of quirky or off the wall.
That whole track is so psychedelic too.
Yeah.
The whole sound of it and everything about it, lyrics, melody, goes into that weird bridge section.
So Teen Boba Fett in the chat, speaking of psychedelics, asked a question. He says, do you feed into the conspiracy that research into LSD in the 60s or 70s made a major boost in our evolution? Well, I don't believe in evolution, and I don't mean of the monkey variety. I believe we probably did come from monkeys. I just mean, like, I don't know if we're actually evolving as humans beyond a certain point. But yeah, that's an interesting theory. Who is it? Terence McKenna, right, is the stoned ape theory?
Yeah.
That, like, this idea that psychedelics have played a role in the growing intelligence of primates, humans, has been going on since, like, pre-human, and that it was like literally monkeys coming out of the jungle into savannas, and there were now ungulates or whatever, cows and stuff that were pooping and growing certain kinds of psychedelic mushrooms that they started to eat, and caused a major revolution in the intellect of pre-human primates. It's a pretty interesting theory. I don't know how accepted it is. It's a pretty interesting theory.
I think he's asking more if the research into LSD in the 60s or 70s made a major boost in our evolution.
Well, no, I'm saying that's a question that goes way back. I don't know.
I don't know about that. I think it probably led to a lot of MK Ultra stuff.
I think it led to evolution for certain individuals. I think that certain LSD and other psychedelic experiences for certain individuals opened up pathways or possibilities for them that allowed them to then take that further with their own work on themselves. As a collective thing, whether LSD and psychedelics led to more evolution of humanity and human thought, I think that's more of a question, and I lean towards basically, or not necessarily, because I think evolution ultimately occurs on the level of the individual. I'm talking about like intellectual or spiritual evolution.
Yeah, I don't know if you could, and even if there are these waves of evolution, as in conscious evolution or whatever Teen Boba Fett might be referring to, even if there are these waves, which there seem to be, you couldn't pinpoint it down to one or a few things. Like, there do seem to be some real waves of boosts of intellectual thought and philosophical thought in the West. Like in the 20s and 30s, the amount of Eastern teachers that came to the West and were like just exploded before the age of the internet and anything else of being able to get the word out. Like when Yogananda came to the West, he was talking to 5,000 people a night sometimes within a few months of being in the country. And then there are these little waves, like the 60s were like that too, the amount of kind of big thinkers that exploded in popularities. But what you can attribute that to, I have no idea.
Jesus Christ in the Church of LSD.
Well, even that, aren't they investigating that, like Soma?
What do you mean?
Soma
I was thinking Church of Latter Saints Day.
I thought you were talking about like the early church or Christian history.
Latter Saints Day.
Yeah.
Of like the Temple of Delphi and all that, like, I guess pre-Christian, like
Eleusis.
Yeah, all that stuff that there's
Aragon.
Yeah, you clearly can't separate human thought from psychedelics. They have played a role, it seems.
Well, this is the really interesting thing is that what what actually came first, the discovery of it or the awareness or the evolution of consciousness to discover the drug, like ayahuasca, which I hate to be talking on a podcast about ayahuasca, but it's a combination of two plants in the Amazon, which is millions and millions of species of plants, that these two plants, when they're cooked together, create a psychedelic experience. And only those two, when they're cooked in a certain way. So it's not like you couldn't spend thousands of years searching the jungle and trying them out to get that effect. Something had to have occurred.
You might, because, I mean, how did Hoffman discover LSD? Wasn't he trying to make something else that entirely unrelated to psychedelics?
Yeah, it was
and he stumbled upon
yeast or something that he was doing, right?
Yeah, he stumbled upon a fundamental psychedelic that I think exists in some form in ergot, right? LSD, like that in the yeast.
That's different though, because I mean, also the cultures in the Amazon, they say that
the
plants talk to them and told them to find those two plants and combine them in a certain way. Yeah. So I mean, who the hell knows? But something is a little bit more mysterious than we know.
Yeah, I guess my whole question is like, if it's a random thing, is that evolution? Evolution in the sense of a normal word, like adaptation, like things change. But is that the point you're making? That
I'm saying I don't know how the question from the chat exactly meant it, so I'm taking it in the direction I would take it, which is what evolution means to me. If we're going to discuss that word, and we talked about this, I think, on the last one, is we have to kind of define what it means. I think we can basically probably all accept, like, there's mechanical evolution that occurs through species, through what the typical scientific definition of evolution. But when we talk about human evolution beyond changing physical traits and that, like, is there another aspect to life? And this has to go then into the mind and what the mind is. And that becomes a much more difficult question to answer, because that, I think, by its definition, cannot be mechanical, because otherwise it's just the same as everything else that's occurring in the universe.
Also, if, Steve Jobs was a big LSD advocate and it led to the personal computer maybe, and then maybe that will lead to a devolved state. I don't know. It's like there's these swings and roundabouts with all of these events. There is an obsession right now with the history of psychedelics, maybe rightfully so, but it's also this kind of, it's the novelty of it, It's also, it's everyone likes the shortcut. Yeah, I think that's the part, exactly. You just nailed exactly what I find subconsciously frustrating about it, is that it's an attraction to a shortcut.
Right.
Which maybe there are shortcuts, and maybe that's an aspect of life which you're trying to save time.
I think there might be shortcuts. I don't know if there's easy cuts. You know what I mean? Like there might be a quicker way. Again, we have to talk about what that means in the context of what time means and all that shit. But I don't think there's an easy cut. Nothing of value is easy. Yeah. I think that's a pretty fair truism.
Yeah, because you could define, or maybe it's not a definition, but you could think of evolution in the way we're talking about it, not in terms of the like adaptation, basically, and species adapting to environments to be more efficient in an environment. You could think about it in terms of some emotional deficiency that you either agree on as a collective, or you can feel inside yourself, like rage. Getting over rage or reducing the amount of rage you have could be thought of as a type of evolution in your own consciousness. But yeah, there's no shortcuts, because I've met a lot of people who've done ayahuasca who are just total assholes.
I mean, if
probably more, they're even a bigger asshole after taking ayahuasca.
Like, if you're not talking about ayahuasca on a podcast in Austin, Texas, are you even podcasting? It's become a bit of a meme now. And there's got to be a bunch of the shaman experiences down in Peru now. They're just capitalizing on this shit because there's got to be some real ones. There's got to be some people that have some deep understanding and probably treat it like a sacred thing, and they're not just fucking taking every $200.
This is a pretty interesting story. I mean, he's making the rounds now. He's a very famous. I've talked about him on the podcast before. Gabor Mate. He's a famous psychologist from Israel, and he talks a lot about childhood trauma and all that stuff. And he was born in the time of the Holocaust, and his mom had to like abandon him when he was 1 year old or something like that to give him away to an aunt or a family friend or something like that while they were in danger of being persecuted. So he attributes a lot of his issues to this abandonment, and that's what he focuses on. Anyway, he leads some of these retreats with psychologists. He takes psychiatrists and psychologists and therapists into plant medicine ceremonies, and he goes into he did an ayahuasca one, and he has this funny story where he brought like 15 or 20 people from all over the world down to Colombia or Brazil or somewhere. He was doing one, and the shamans didn't really know who he was. They knew he was a Western person, but they didn't know any of his like accolades and didn't know he was a New York Times best-selling author. And they're going to do this ceremony for a week, and they ended up pulling him aside and said, "Listen, we got to take you out of the ceremony because you've got too much darkness in you, and you're kind of ruining the experience for everyone." And so he's the leader of all these psychologists, and they said basically, you haven't worked through your own shit, and you're impenetrable right now. So the medicine and our chanting and everything is not going to work on you because you've not done the work on yourself. So we're going to actually remove you from your own retreat, and because you're not allowing the rest of the people to get the benefit of it. So they ended up taking him out, and he did his own. Like 3 shamans or whatever worked with him for like 5 or 10 days straight, just him personally on his own, to work through his own darkness and stuff. And it was just it was a kind of a funny story.
I will forget what I was going to say because there was a Aldous Huxley thing that was related to this, but I've completely lost it. So maybe I need to take more ayahuasca, have better memory. Oh, we were talking. That's what it was. Sorry, we were talking about evolution, and there's an interesting quote from that book, The Perennial Philosophy, where he says, "Every species except the human chose immediate short-range success by means of specialization, but specialization always leads into blind alleys. It's only by remaining precariously generalized that an organism can advance towards that rational intelligence, which is its compensation for not having a body and instincts perfectly adapted to one particular kind of environment." So that's a pretty interesting take on what might separate human evolution from typical animal evolution or like natural evolution, is that we have some agency, for lack of a better word, in controlling what our mind and what it is we focus on. You know?
It's also, one other aspect that's similar is the mimicry thing. The fact that humans can mimic. Right. So they can learn a new skill, or they can see someone who's figured something out and learn it.
That's why I'm actively trying to not be an expert at anything.
Well, the problem is you can mimic something. You can save time and not reinvent the wheel if someone's figured out something difficult to do. But then your mimicry brain is going on all the time, so you're also just mimicking everything bad that people do.
Yeah. Well, Dylan, you made that as a joke. You're not trying to become an expert at anything, but it's actually kind of true because what we have a lot of in this world, and it's highlighted on social media, is we have a lot of tripods with one giant leg, and I'm not making a dick joke. Like we have, let's say humans are tripods. We've got 3 centers in us that we could stand on, or 3 legs, and we've got a bunch of people that have like really worked out one of these legs, and it's either intellectual or it's either physical or it's something else. And there's something to about a harmonious growing of things that you cannot specialize too much on one thing, or if you do, you have to remain aware of it and bring up the other parts of you with it. Otherwise, you end up like this weird lopsided
you can specialize.
thing.
You can't obsess.
Yeah,
you can specialize. Like you could become an expert woodworker and that's your specialty, but it's you can't necessarily internally obsess about it.
Yeah, you
because
wouldn't
then
at
all
the-
you would become is
a
woodworker.
woodworker. Yeah,
That's
if you basically at the end of the process have turned into the thing you were trying to do, then you haven't necessarily developed. You've just become a thing.
Yeah, which then a machine can make a table much better than you potentially.
Yeah.
But the end of the phrase is, isn't it? Jack of all trades, master of none, better than master of none.
Fool me once, fool me twice, fool me.
What is it?
Don't fool
What
me
is it?
again.
Look up the full phrase for jack of all trades, because I remember it being something more than
More profound than just the.
master of none. What's the complete phrase?
It's not fucking Shakespeare, is it?
Full quotation. Yeah.
Where does it say that?
I don't see it.
Full quotation there.
Trying to read the full quotation of this.
But oftentimes better than master of one. That's what. Yeah.
Huh.
That's.
Okay.
I knew there was something that I. Yeah, I know that everyone knows the first part, jack of all trades, master of none, but the caveat was but oftentimes better than master of one. So it's also addressing the imbalance.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that becomes a way more interesting quote.
So many of those quotes are like that. Like even blood is thicker than water. If you understand the origin of that quote, it's way more interesting.
I don't know that.
Well, people often hear blood is thicker than water to have it mean that like family,
Right.
stick with your family. Your family.
yeah, I know that, but I don't
It's
know
like
that word.
literally the opposite of that. It's that the blood of shared experience of a battle, say, is stronger than the water of the womb. Is the actual understanding
wow.
of that. So it's saying like a shared experience among people,
Right.
let's say soldiers, creates a stronger bond than necessarily just being born in the same
Shedding
womb,
blood.
of the same wound.
Yeah.
So it's way different
Right.
thing.
Team Boba Fett says just means you're mediocre at everything, which I don't know if it does really mean that. And sometimes you'd rather have that. Like I think about it in terms of the farm, running a farm, and how useless an expert might be that came to the farm that was just an expert at one thing. Like if all they knew was one element of life, they would be virtually useless because you have to wait for like your air conditioning to break and then they can fix that or something like that. But most people who are really useful in that context are going to be jack of all trades.
Well, not just even that. I mean, yeah, that's true. But the analogy of a farm is if you had an overabundance of a certain soil bacteria or a certain insect, you have a broken garden. And the same has to be, I mean, that's true across all forms of existence. It has to be true of us, that there's no benefit to being one-sided,
Yeah. I'm also just know I'm not going to be a master even if I did pick one thing.
Yeah, it's too late in life, basically.
A jack-off of all trades. That's what I am. All right, guys, we got nothing more interesting to say. We'll be back next week with in-studio guest Dad Zodiac. Should be an interesting conversation. Follow us on Instagram, the podcast account. We're posting all the clips there. Help share those. And all the other stuff. Bunch of new stuff coming this year. New music, new covers, new podcast guests.
Just go on that thing there. Is that saying that this is a modified into less, but oftentimes better than master of one? With some writers saying that such a couplet is the original version with the second line having been dropped, but there are no known instances of the second line dated to before the 21st century. Huh.
Well, for those watching, we should keep encouraging people to interact with us on social media. It helps us, and as we start to move to releasing some new music, Like Team Boba says, when's Egomaniac instrumental coming? We are going to be doing that pretty soon, right?
Yeah, sometime this year we'll be putting
This year,
those out.
yeah, and we're going to be putting out a lot of new music this year, and it really helps us with the algorithm if you guys interact with our Instagram and Twitter posts. Even if it's something simple, you don't have to, comment every time, but save it, send it to a friend, like it, whatever. And then more people end up seeing the actually important posts, like when we announce a new album or a new song.
Yeah. It's an ongoing battle with this goddamn algorithm, and we need your help in our army. All right. We'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.